welcome to episode 65 of This Week in Germany. We'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with news for the week beginning the 30th of March 2015. My name's Daniel.
And I am Rob. Each week we bring you stories from the news, society, and culture in the English language. If you want to find out more, including ways to follow us on Twitter, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and now Spotify, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de.
In this episode, a horrific plane crash in the Alps has claimed the lives of 150 people. We'll be finding out more about how it happened from Süddeutsche Zeitung's reporter Michael König.
In Destination Germany, we tell you where you can see one of Germany's and the world's most popular beers being made.
Our German of the Week is Emmy Noether, an influential mathematician who was featured internationally in a Google Doodle celebrating her 133rd birthday.
Greece's Prime Minister visited Chancellor Merkel in Berlin this week. But was it enough to patch up the two countries' shaky relationship?
All that, plus the rest of the week's news in brief, coming up.
Welcome to BBC World News. We have breaking news at this hour, and a plane is reported to have gone down over the southern French Alps. It's operated by Germanwings, an A320 Airbus.
Meine Damen und Herren, erschütternde Nachrichten erreichen uns aus Südfrankreich. Der Absturz der deutschen Maschine mit über 140 Menschen an Bord ist ein Schock, der uns in Deutschland und der Franzosen und Spanier in tiefe Trauer stürzt.
The search and recovery operation has resumed in southern France, the normally tranquil alpine sky resonating as teams of investigators are carried to and fro following yesterday's plane crash.
And from the gendarmerie, which is leading the investigation, and from us as well, the most probable interpretation is that the co-pilot,
par une abstention volontaire,
due to a voluntary abstention, refused to open the cabin door to the pilot. He refused to open the cockpit door and action the button which starts the descent procedure.
A joint French-German investigation team are trying to figure out what might have motivated him to crash the plane on purpose. There have been unconfirmed reports that he suffered from depression and mental illness.
A collection there of clips from the English language media on how they reported this week's events. There were clips from BBC News, Euronews, Sky News and Deutsche Welle. So, Rob, maybe you could give us a summary of what occurred.
On Tuesday morning, terrible news came from France. An Airbus A320 flying towards Dusseldorf crashed in a remote part of the Alps. All 150 people on board were killed. French officials say that they are confident the co-pilot intentionally put the plane into a descent. While they believe that the co-pilot was most likely the cause of the crash, investigators still haven't entirely ruled out the possibility of a technical failure.
The mountain rescue team was able to recover a voice recorder from the crash site. The second black box is still missing. This data recorder would help to provide more information into the cause of the crash. On Thursday, Michael König, reporter for the Süddeutsche Zeitung, spoke to me from Munich via Skype. So, Michael, what exactly happened to Germanwings flight 9525?
Yeah, well, on Tuesday morning, Germanwings flight from Barcelona to Düsseldorf crashed in the French Alps, killing 150 people, all of the passengers and the crew. Among the victims, there were 49 Spaniards and 70 people from Germany, the biggest group of passengers. Among them, there were school kids from the city of Haltern in North Rhine-Westphalia and their two teachers. It was just a devastating crash. The plane hit the mountain at very high speed, so it was ripped apart in little pieces, basically. And the crash site is in very rough terrain, surrounded by mountains and only accessible by foot or by helicopter, so the rescue operations are very difficult.
Yes,
yes?
we received the information that the crash apparently happened at 9:40 a.m. We received the information shortly thereafter. Straight away, François Hollande, the president of France, gave a statement almost straight away saying that there were no survivors. And I think that goes some way to showing how absolutely devastating the crash was. And we see images of the crash site on news channels, and we can see it really is absolutely devastating. There are almost no pieces of the fuselage intact.
Right, yeah. And we don't really want to know what happened to the bodies laying there. I think it's really a horrible crash. And, after hours of searching the area, the investigators or rescue forces found the voice recording device that was built in the plane, which was damaged, but they managed to analyze the last minutes of the flight and what was spoken in the cockpit.
So with this information, first of all, we can see on the internet, anyone can access it, on a website like Flight Radar 24, we can see what happened in terms of the trajectory of the flight. But now that we have the voice recorder, what can we piece together to try and find out what caused the crash?
Well, first, it was a bit of a mystery why the plane went down rather slow. The descent took for 10 minutes or so, which is quite unusual because normally when there's a technical problem or so, the descent would be much faster. But now the French prosecutors and investigators, they say that the analysis of the voice recorder, it shows that minutes before the crash, the co-pilot locked himself in the cockpit while the pilot was using the restroom. And he locked this door in a way that the pilot couldn't enter the cockpit anymore. And this man, 20 years old, from Germany, he seemed to, began the descent on purpose that finally resulted in the crash.
I should say 28 years old was the man. We're not going to mention his name on the program, but it's been put around the internet quite a lot. And so we know a bit about him. We know that he has some flying experience, about almost 700 hours, I think I read. The pilot, on the other hand, had thousands of hours of experience, but he wasn't there. He wasn't in the cockpit when it happened because he was locked out. And we have also seen that the procedure for the cockpit door means that someone can open the door from outside with a special code, but a person inside the cockpit can lock the door, meaning that even with a code, absolutely no one can gain access. And it seems, according to the French prosecutor who gave a statement today on Thursday, as we're recording this, said that it seems the door was purposefully locked from inside the cockpit by the co-pilot.
Right. According to the prosecutors, the voice recorder shows that the co-pilot kept on breathing normally for 8 more minutes until the crash, while you can hear the pilot trying to break in the door, kicking the door and screaming without success, and the passengers start screaming as well at the end when they maybe see the mountains coming near. So, it's just one theory among others, but the investigators say that it could be an act of committing suicide by the co-pilot.
Yes, and I think also something which came out of the press conference, which was today, from Carsten Spohr, the CEO of Lufthansa, which owns Germanwings. He said that they believe that all of their procedures are correct for monitoring the health and well-being of their pilots, and that this was simply a one-off, which is so rare, which cannot be prevented or could not be foreseen, as he put it. And while they will be reviewing their procedures, it seems that they would find it really hard to prevent something like this from happening, because of course with the door of the aircraft, you don't want to make it easy to enter the cockpit, and also you always have to be able to put full trust in the people who are flying the plane. But I think looking to the future, perhaps things which could be changed in order to prevent this from happening in the future. I think in America and some European airlines, they make sure that there are always 2 staff members in the cockpit at a time, so that if the pilot leaves the cockpit, that a steward, for example, would enter the cockpit simply to be there, to observe, as in case some kind of very rare incident would happen. And I think that could be one direction that they're looking at for the future. What's going to happen next after this terrible incident?
I think that's one main point in the discussion. How can a company prevent their pilots from mental illness, or how can they detect those things? People that wanted to become a pilot tell us that it is standard procedure to be checked, like in a psychological test at Lufthansa headquarters when you want to start there and you want to fly for them. And if you fail at this one test, then you're out. So they take this very seriously. On the other hand, there were reports that the co-pilot suspended his education at the pilot school, so to say, Lufthansa's pilot school in Bremen, city of Bremen, because of things like that. So it's not really clear, and it's too early to say what exactly happened there, what was the problem. But I think Lufthansa and Germanwings will take this very seriously and try to detect those things, prevent those things better than they do now.
Okay, Michael König, journalist for Süddeutsche Zeitung, thank you very much for joining us here on This Week in Germany.
Now for this week's News in Brief. In the previous weekend, both Germany and France had sent ministers to Iran ahead of a meeting that took place on Tuesday discussing the agreements on nuclear energy. The negotiations started on time and were steadily progressing the first part of the week. On the third day of the talks, Iran refused to move from their position that allowed them to continue their advanced nuclear research program. Germany, as well as other nations, have been pushing hard to make an agreement defining Iran's nuclear framework. A Western diplomat spoke with a news outlet, CNN, and told them that the talks were not going well. Iran is still showing hope in the discussions. The Iranian foreign minister expressed progress was being made after having met with the French and German ministers. Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the German foreign minister, believes the negotiation agreements are in sight, and he compared it with almost getting to the peak of a mountain. He hopes that with all the work that everyone has put in to get this far, that the troubles that were experienced this week will not make anyone give up searching for a resolution. Chancellor Angela Merkel and the U.S. President Barack Obama spoke on the phone late last week. They agreed that Iran must make the decisions necessary to resolve the remaining issues. The deadline is fast approaching for this nuclear deal with Iran on June 30th. A new study is out this past week from the Bertelsmann Institute that said Germany will need to have about 500,000 new immigrants this year and every other year for the next 35 years in order to maintain its workforce. One leading factor for this situation is that the baby boomer generation is now reaching retirement age. Coupled with a low birth rate, Germany does not have enough homegrown workers to fill the labor market. Germany is currently an attractive country in which many citizens around the EU have now decided to call home. The study warns that if the Eurozone crisis lessens for many of the countries struggling in the EU nations, less people will want to immigrate to Germany, and therefore Germany will need to find more non-EU citizens to make the move. The study is predicting a substantial drop in the country's native workforce, and that the population able to work will decrease by 36% by the year 2050. That is even raising the retirement age to 70, with it now being between 63 to 67. It will still not be more than a drop in the bucket. Right now, less than about 1/5 of those immigrating to Germany from outside the EU are coming here first and foremost to find employment. Many are worried that making it easier to immigrate to Germany might actually hurt the country more than it could help. A poll made by the Bertelsmann Institute showed that 43% of Germans want to make sure that the country only issues visas to those that will have a positive effect on the country. In the Bundestag, in the nation's capital Berlin, the German parliament has now ratified the EU's association agreement with Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Each of these countries have set a course to get ready for membership in the European Union. This association agreement is a treaty that will help solidify their cooperation with the EU and help their integration within the zone. The countries will now start to converge on economic policy, legislation, and a regulation across a broad range of areas. This includes equal rights for workers, steps towards a visa-free movement of people, and the exchange of information. But as nice as this sounds, many have pointed out that Ukraine especially will have a lot of work in front of it in order to fit in, mostly due to the conflict currently with Russia. The free trade agreement is currently on hold due to objections from Moscow. They are set to resume at the end of this year. And that's the news in brief. If you would like a quick and simple way to keep up with the latest from Germany, sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can find that on our website, thisweekingermany.de.
Now it's time for story number 2. On Monday, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras visited Berlin to meet with Chancellor Merkel. In total, Greece has borrowed over 226 billion euros from several institutions and European countries, but Germany is its biggest creditor. The new Greek government wants to find a way to pay back the money without making too harsh cuts at home. Recently, relations have been tense between the two countries. Some reporting has depicted Greece as a greedy country, and even Germany as being over-dominant. Eurozone finance officials have blamed Greece's inflexibility in negotiations for the lack of progress.
Yes, we talked about the background of these issues between Greece and Germany in last week's episode of the podcast. As for this week, why did Tsipras come to Germany? The negotiations are with the Eurozone institutions collectively, right?
Well, it's because Germany is Greece's biggest creditor. Plus, Germany is the biggest power in the European Union, and its opinion is important, whether it's Greece or Russia or any other foreign policy matter. As The Economist put it this week, in contrast to the apocryphal story of Henry Kissinger wondering what number one calls to speak to Europe, Barack Obama knows exactly who to consult on Europe's Russia policy, and she does not sit in Brussels. Essentially, that's saying that whether it's Russia or Greece or whatever foreign policy matter, people know that Angela Merkel is the one in power, in control, and leading in Europe.
Okay, what happened to that meeting?
When the Prime Minister arrived, to the shock of his security staff, he got out of his car to greet the waiting fans, the people who were essentially blocked from getting close to where the meeting would actually take place. That is, he went up and shook the hands of people from left-wing parties and left-wing groups in Germany who support his anti-austerity ideals. He was treated to a formal welcome on a red carpet with a military band, and this is usually how Germany accepts important people from friendly countries. This in itself was a positive sign. It showed that Germany wanted to welcome Greece with open arms and work together with them seriously as partners.
And what did they say in their discussions?
Well, in the press conference at least, there was a warm and friendly tone. While they still didn't agree on everything, they both showed a willingness for dialogue and to work together.
Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω θερμά την Καγκελάριο για την πρόσκληση.
I'd like to thank the Chancellor for the invitation, where we've had the opportunity to conduct bilateral relations. I believe that this meeting is particularly important because we have to understand each other better. There is no other way than that of dialogue in order to overcome existing difficulties. That's our common European experience, to find a way out of problems through mutual understanding. Those were the words of Alexis Tsipras at the press conference on Monday. He repeated his criticism of the structure of the European Union and what he called the structural problems which led to the financial crisis. However, he made it clear that Greece was in serious need of reform with tax avoidance and fighting corruption, something Germany really wanted to hear. While no one is talking of a sudden clear road to agreement, the leaders of the two countries are showing a willingness to change their rhetoric. While they may not agree on how Greece should pay back its debts, they are both hoping to make a fresh start and forge a path of polite discussion.
And coming up right now is Destination Germany. We're taking you on a journey somewhere in the country that is well worth a visit, whether you're a tourist or a permanent resident, a foreigner or a German citizen. Here we'll be covering the famous sites as well as those little-known corners of Deutschland. All that matters is showing you that Germany is an interesting and exciting place to visit. If you enjoy our destinations that we talk about each week, check out our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have photos of each week's destination.
In our last episode, we travelled south and got to explore a great outdoor destination in the state of Baden-Württemberg. It's the mountain range called the Schwäbische Alb, and it has some pretty unique features to draw in visitors. Some of these mountains were formed by volcanic activity, which gives the land a barren look, but will eventually give way to the dense wood of the Black Forest. But don't worry, before you get to the Black Forest, there are no active volcanoes in this area these days. The mountains are easily accessible and with wonderful scenic views, which makes the Schwäbische Alb an attractive area to hike, bike and camp. So now that it's spring and the weather is getting a bit warmer, will we be going to more outdoor destinations?
We will definitely, 100% be taking a look at more great outdoor fun spring, summer destinations. But this week, we're going to be doing something that many people like to do when the weather warms up, especially in Germany, and that is to drink a nice, refreshing beer.
Now, 1 second. We've been doing this podcast for over a year now, and you know very well that German beer is not a destination.
Daniel, do you know, or can you guess what the most popular beer is in Germany that's sold worldwide?
I'm not sure. Is it Weihenstephan?
No, it's not. It's Beck's.
Oh, yes, of course. All right, yes.
Beck's is the best-selling German beer around the world and is also quite popular in Germany as well. Due to it becoming so popular around the world, it can now be brewed outside Germany, but this was not always the case. When it was just a family business, then the Beck's brewery was in Bremen. It's still in Bremen, but it started out in Bremen as well. And that is our destination this week. For all you German beer lovers, we're going to the Beck's Brewery in Bremen.
Okay, the Beck's Brewery, or Brauerei. Yes, like you said, located in the city-state of Bremen. So, can you tell us a bit about this famous brewery?
It's been around quite some time making beer, and it was founded back in 1873 under the name Kaiserbrauer Beck and May. Just 2 years later, Thomas May left the company, and so did his name, and so the company after that was just Beck's, or Kaiserbrauer Beck and Company. And since that time, Beck has become quite famous for its Pilsner and has also added a few other items to their lineup as well.
So since this is a destination, I assume that we and all of our listeners have the ability to visit the brewery.
You assume correctly. If you're visiting Bremen, you can stop by the Beck's Brewery and take a guided tour. Just a quick note here, check the times first for available tours. They're on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., but not all of them are available in English. So if that's important to you, check out their website or call ahead first so you can make sure you find a tour that you're going to enjoy.
Once visitors have arrived and sign up for the tour, what will they experience in the Beck's Brewery?
You can buy a ticket for €10.90, and that is an adult ticket. And that's the only ticket they offer because you must be at least 16 years old to take the tour.
Oh, that's a shame.
And this age requirement does apply to children as well. So if you're there as an adult wanting to look at the brewery, you're not allowed to bring your kids, unfortunately. So sorry, kids, no beer for you. Once you're inside, you'll get to take a guided tour around the factory and learn quite a bit about the art of brewing beer, beer history, and what all that huge, loud equipment is for, and about the different brands they bottle there. Visitors will get to go through and learn about all the important places inside of a brewery, like the ingredient store, the brew house, malt silos, and the fermentation tanks. As well as the actual factory, you'll also get to go through a museum as well. And I'm saving the best part for last. I bet you can guess what that is.
Well, knowing you, I think it's the actual beer tasting. But you can actually go to a shop and just buy some beer and not have to pay the €10 if that's what you really want.
Oh, you know me pretty well. Yes, at the end of the tour, you'll get a chance to drink between 3 and 5 different beers that they produce. And I'm not talking about these like little sample beers. I'm talking about full beers. And from an economic standpoint, that pretty much pays for the guided tour by itself. Check out our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have some pictures to show you exactly what you can expect from the Beck's Brewery in Bremen.
Next up, our German of the Week section, where we put the spotlight on a prominent person from this week's news, a German citizen or even a foreigner who we deem an honorary German, who has had an effect, for better or worse, on German culture, society, or politics.
If you went to Google's homepage this past Monday, you may have noticed a unique Google Doodle that honored our person of the week, Emmy Noether. Emmy Noether was born this day on March 23rd, 1882. She was a highly influential mathematician. She was one of the leading mathematicians of her time and was described by those like Pavel Alexandrov and Albert Einstein to be one of the most important women in the history of mathematics. She taught and did research at the University of Göttingen for almost 20 years. During this time, she made major contributions to abstract algebra and theoretical physics. Because she was born into a Jewish family, her position at the university was terminated in 1933. She took her firing calmly and continued to work on mathematics, even holding lectures for students in her own home. By the end of the year, she ended up moving out of Germany to a university in the United States. She was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer in 1935 and died a short time after when she fell unconscious with a high fever, possibly from a viral infection. Today, Noether's work continues to be relevant for the development of theoretical physics and mathematics, and she is constantly ranked as one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century.
That's the end of episode number 65. This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter, and it is written and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. Thank you to Michael König from the Süddeutsche Zeitung for speaking to us for our top story. You can find more from him on Twitter at Michi König.
Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can leave us a 5-star review there, which is one of the ways you can support our podcast for free without having to spend a single penny. It really helps us find new listeners, so thank you everyone that has left us a review. If you'd like to get a weekly email update or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Spreaker, Spotify, or SoundCloud, all the details are on our website, thisweekingermany.de.
Also on there, we now have a new features menu. You can go to our website to listen to your favourite clips from the show. Want a list of all the Destination Germany clips from the past few weeks? Do you want to re-listen to a recent edition of the Film Club? It's all there. Just go to the menu bar at the top and click Features.
And we have a new mission statement. This sets our aims for creating the podcast, so check that out on the About Us page. Basically, it explains why we give up hours of our free time so we can bring you this program each and every week.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Monday with more of This Week in Germany.